Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. I just wanted to start in a traditional Canadian manner of starting a speech with a joke. And the joke is, is an elephant joke. The French people, the American people, the Italian people, the Russian people, and then the Canadian people were told to give their thoughts about the elephant, an elephant, right? So the French person wrote about the elephant, so the French people wrote the love life of the elephant. The Americans wrote the productivity and the money that the elephant made that year. The Italians wrote about what the elephant ate and what music they listened to. The Russians wrote about the revolutionary potential of the elephant. And last but not least, the Canadian wrote, the elephant, is it municipal, provincial or federal responsibility? Maybe Tim Apple can tell us if it's federal or provincial. But I wanted to start my speech first to talk about the issue that I think we all talk about when we deal with different communities, and that's the challenge of multiculturalism. I will then proceed to what I call pluralism in the Canadian context, and finally I'll speak a little bit more on advocacy and try to put advocacy in the context of this community in Alberta by giving examples. So the first two will be mainly theoretical, the last one will be practical, what exactly needs to be done according to my observations in the last 2 months. Multiculturalism, the idea of Canadian multiculturalism was introduced by Pierre Elliott Trudeau. His vision was to have to open Canada's immigration doors to non-white foreigners. So he put a lot of emphasis initially on tolerance and acceptance, which is understandable. But then it was supposed to move to the next level of integration and true equality. But what the unfortunate reality is that Trudeau's vision and Brian Mulroney's enactment did not actually go to the next level of true integration and equality. So, in other words, there was more emphasis on the tolerance and acceptance of difference rather than integration and equality, which is why you see not just media but also powers that be keep referring to Canadians with a certain cultural heritage as their, like referring to them as quote-unquote Somali or Kurdish or Afghani, regardless of how long the person has been here or whether they were born in Canada or not. So in other words, when you look at multiculturalism as it plays itself out in Canada, you notice that there's a lot of emphasis on folk songs and song and dance and contextualizing it in how people wear a certain type of dress. But when you look at the true test of multiculturalism is, in my opinion, when you look at the federal or provincial civil service, when you look at parliament, when you look at professional schools, when you look at those kinds of places, that is where the rubber meets the road when it comes to multiculturalism. So if multiculturalism was carried to its logical extension, then you should have the same number of, or at least a rough number of divisions, or a rough number of diversity in the general public as well as in the civil service or professional programs like medical school and others. So what then needs to happen to take multiculturalism to the next level? Well, what needs to happen is that multiculturalism has to evolve to become pluralism. Multiculturalism is more about us and them, but in pluralism there is no them. In truly successful pluralism in Canada, it's only us. There is no Somalis or Pakistanis or whatever. It's all us as Canadians, and so our issues become the same issues for everybody. Pluralism has to go into, so multiculturalism is about celebrating difference, and then the next level is creating diversity. The third level is constructive engagement, and finally the fourth level is true integration, which leads to citizenship. So we have to ensure that one of the, I think the blessings that we have as the Canadian Somali community is that because we are one of the relatively new communities, we can learn from the processes that other communities took in their long road to become integrated. And we can learn from those mistakes and successes, because we don't have to go through the same lengthy integration level. We can borrow the template of success from, say, Ukrainian Canadians and learn about their successful integration mechanism, and also avoid some of the mistakes that they did. I think that's what Canada is truly about. Pluralism is also fluid and responsive, so it's ever evolving, but it's also very responsive to our problems. The next natural step in a mature multiculturalism society like Canada is that we move away from ethnic silos. We move away from terminologies such as saying Somali. We move towards interests. We talk about what is our communal interest as us, as Canadians. We also move towards a way of understanding common challenges. We also move towards social and economic integration and inclusion. Move away from addressing Somali problems and start to address them as Canadian problems. What does this all mean for Canadian Somalis in Alberta? Well, it means that there's a two-pronged process. Become the issues that are in the mainstream, then they will seek solutions. But as long as our problems are seen as Somali problems, no one will care about solving them. That's the hard reality. So the challenge in our community is, how do we quickly and very efficiently mainstream our community in such a way that other folks will, the mainstream community will engage us and take our issues as Canadian issues and seek common solutions. And before I do that, so I'll give you a profile of our community. There was a study done together with the Carleton University, Ottawa Police, United Way, a number of people. They did the first ever Canadian Somali community profile, because we didn't even know our own profile. When I say profile, I mean things like income level, age distribution, and things like that. I'll just pick 3 examples from that study to give you an idea of what the profile is of this community, because once you realize the profile, then you realize where most of our efforts should go. One of the most shocking things about that study is that it found 68% of the Canadian Somali community is between 0 to 14 years of age. 68%. 80% of the Canadian Somali community is between 0 to 30 years of age. Our senior citizens are only 1% of our community, whereas in the mainstream community it's 11%. Our median household income for the Canadian Somali community is 6 times below the one for the mainstream. It's also our community household income, average household income, is also 3 times below the average for visible minorities. There's an acute lack of access to jobs and professions. So that is the profile that we're working with. How do you take this on? You take this on by engaging in advocacy/education. How do you affect change? Well, you affect change by raising and educating people on issues. A lot of times, our community members complain about an issue and they say, why is this issue not being addressed? But a lot of times our elected officials don't even know about the issue. So before you even lobby them, you have to first educate them about what the issue is and then talk about solutions. At the end of the day, what will really seek to change this community's reality is what I refer to as grassroots advocacy, meaning that every member of this community has to feel that our issues or challenges or opportunities are common. Unless that happens, then there will be no movement on these issues, because we have to move away from the